Welcome to Pinsky Law Presents. Today's episode, conflicts in the Office of Fire District Commissioner and conflicts in the dealings of the Office of Fire District Commissioner, is going to be a clip from our 2020 Fire Department Law and Management Conference. And at that conference, generally there are 120 to 150 commissioners sitting in our 2-day training in order to fulfill the 6-hour requirement for fire district commissioners. Here's a clip from that training on conflicts in office. Who can be a commissioner? Now there are not a lot of questions I get asked after more than 2 decades of representing districts. There are not a lot of questions I ask that I have to think about much anymore. And that's kind of comfortable at my age. I'm all happy with it. But I did just get asked one on this first thing. It was a great question. So a fire chief cannot serve as a commissioner. The question I got asked is, we have somebody who's a captain. The chief and the assistant chiefs are out of town, maybe here, maybe somewhere else. The only one left is the captain, who is a commissioner. Can the captain act as chief? Thought about it for a minute, put me back at my heels, and the answer is no. If you can't do it initially, you can't do it acting chief. So it would drop down to maybe another captain or a lieutenant, but a commissioner cannot serve as chief. Why is important? Why is important? Why? Because you cannot be your own boss. Who is the boss of the fire chief? You as a board are the boss of the fire chief. You can issue orders and directives as a board, not individually, but as a board to the fire chief. So a commissioner cannot be a chief. A commissioner cannot serve as the treasurer. The district's treasurer can as the company's treasurer. But a commissioner can serve as the treasurer of the fire company. A commissioner also can serve as the secretary. And I just had the question, unfortunately there is this answer in statute, can a commissioner be a paid secretary? You can pay, listen up back there, you can pay your secretary and treasurer. Now we're going to talk about a lot about that, because actually many of you are violating federal and state laws how you pay your secretary and treasurer, right? And the fines you're looking at, I'm not kidding, I kid about a lot of things. You're looking in hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars of fines. 2,000 per day to start with. But I'm going to explain why, so I'll perk your attention. Came up a couple years ago. I'm like, wow, great issue. So I'll talk about it. But your secretary can be the commissioner, right? We know that. Can't be a treasurer. A commissioner cannot be paid as commissioner. A commissioner never may be an employee of the district. And I know there are some near the end of Long Island who hire their commissioners, right, to do work, etc. It is a criminal misdemeanor. I'm going to talk to you today about 4 misdemeanors. I say criminal misdemeanor, there's no other type, right? But there's 4 misdemeanors. One of them, right, will be doing business with, and we'll talk about doing business with a company owned by or controlled by or whatever by one of your commissioners. But you have to be very careful. You cannot employ one of your commissioners. You cannot hire one of your commissioners. Why? You're their boss. You can't be your own boss. You're the fire chief's boss, so you can't be your own boss. So the question comes up, well, wait a minute. How can we pay a secretary who can be commissioner and then make them an employee? I would say you can't, but the statute specifically says you can, right? And that's why there's a statute on it. They wanted to allow you. Now, you're paid as secretary, not as commissioner. No pay as commissioner. You get warm hearts and good thoughts as your reward, right? And I'm sure everybody loves you for being commissioner. Seriously, the most thankless job you have, but we need people. And let me tell you something, by the way, how good you have it in a district. So I was chief of the Manlius Fire Department for 3.5 years. We were a village fire department. We served 26 square miles, big area, town fire protection district and a village. But I go to a village which has a DPW, which has a rec department, which has other employees, right? And they have contracts for different protection and other things. I got 5 minutes per board meeting once a month. It was twice a month for a while. I got 5 minutes of attention for my fire department. Now, I have a multi-million-dollar budget. I have 12 full-time employees plus a bunch of part-time, 60 some odd volunteers, and I get 5 minutes of attention. That is not how you run a fire department. By the way, I'm not picking on our village. That's pretty normal for a village. Fire districts, you do nothing but administer the fire department. And I love sitting at your meetings, which I do we represent people from, the North Country down to the tip of Long Island, from Albany to Buffalo. We're all over, right? So there's no place we hear all the time, I wish you could come near us. We're everywhere. We spend our lives traveling. So COVID's been a weird kind of break where we're doing Zoom meetings, which is cool too, but we much prefer being there. So we sit at meetings, and I am so jealous as a past fire chief of how much time you get to address the issues. Let's talk about personnel for a half an hour. Let's talk about maintenance for a half an hour. Let's talk about new purchases for a half an hour. You guys get to address a lot of stuff. I get 5 minutes to make a report, right? So, and that's typical of villages. Fire districts, great thing. They should be the way we run a fire department. Okay, they're too expensive. You're multi-million-dollar organizations, period. Your budget may not be multi-million, but your vehicles, your fleet, your equipment, right, your building, that's certainly multi-million. Okay, a master mechanic, if they're paid, cannot serve as a commissioner, paid employee. Mayor cannot serve as a commissioner at joint fire district. That's why we got rid of the damn village in the first place. Employees of the district may not serve as a commissioner. That should be the first rule. Even a paid firefighter in a town which contracts with the district cannot be a commissioner. Why? Because the commissioner gives money to the town. The town employs or works with the fire department. The fire department employs 1, 2, 3 removals, employs a firefighter. So indirectly, 3 times removed, the fire commissioner determining how much he pays ultimately that himself as firefighter. Can't do it. It's just a weird thing I had one year. Commissioner of a fire district can serve as commissioner of a water district, like Manhasset, Lakeville, and some other places. Town assessor can serve as a commissioner. Town clerk can serve as a commissioner. Firefighter can serve as a commissioner. Attorney for the district, yeah, can, but bad idea, bad idea. Line officers can serve as a commissioner. Chiefs may not. Chief, first, second assistant. Line officers may, however. Chiefs may not. Okay, so commissioners, the fire district cannot do business with an entity which one of the commissioners has a interest in. As an owner, as a major shareholder, more than 5% of the stock. Why? What do you mean, why? Right? The reason's easy, isn't it? You can't give taxpayer money and funnel it to something you own. What if I just recuse myself? Well, let me teach you first what recusal means. This is a big deal. Recusal, most people think, I'm just not going to vote. That's not recusal, and you need to know this, secretaries, because you need to kick the commissioner out of the room. Recusal means get up, get out. You're not there for the discussion, and you're not there for the vote. Why? So I don't stare at you and give you nasty looks the whole time we're discussing it. Or so I can do something which, firefighters are used to doing. Once you leave the room, I'm going to stab you in the back, right? In the fire world, you always want to be the last one out of the room, right? So presumably you won't say anything bad about yourself. But on recusing, you have to get up out of the room. Most people say, I'm not leaving. Well, then we're not voting on it, right? They have to get up and leave the room, and then secretaries, you can go get them and bring them back as they're pissing and moaning outside. Okay. So, you can't do business. Well, wait a minute. What happens if you do business? And I'm covering like 3 or 4 slides together, so following along will be a little tough at the moment. If you do business with a prohibited company, one that you own, your wife owns, your brother owns, one that you own more than 5% of, it is a criminal misdemeanor. Again, there's no other type. It is a misdemeanor, right? Jail time for that. You can be removed from office. You will be listed on the internet in the comptroller's report forever. Let's not embarrass ourselves. My parents always used to say to me, you get one chance at building a reputation, and you get one chance at destroying what you spent a lifetime building, right? So be very careful on this. Let's talk about that. Okay, so the question is, right? Question is, what if they're not an owner? What is a prohibited financial interest? Okay, clearly an owner, your wife's an owner, spouse is an owner, partner's an owner, whatever, that's prohibited, right? You once removed. And I would say first family relations owner, too much. If you own more than 5% of the stock, too much interest, right? But if you own like a share of General Motors, you could go out and buy a Chevy Tahoe. Not a problem. What if you are a janitor? Well, not a salesperson, a janitor, custodian. Does the custodian care really how much is being sold? Does the custodian benefit for if they have a good year or not? Not really, right? Custodian gets a salary, presumably, or hourly. It works hourly, and it doesn't depend on, hey, we had a good year or not, right? They don't work on commission. So at the other end of this spectrum is, well, you are a custodian or a stock person or whatever. You don't earn a benefit, a bonus based on how well the company does. That's not prohibited. So you can be an employee of an entity and still work there, right? And still the commissioner can do, the district can do business with the company you work for. But that's at this end. Ownership is at this end. What about, let's come to the middle. What about now you're a salesperson? You earn a commission. Okay? The answer is absolutely not. Absolutely, the district cannot do business with your company, right? Because you would earn a commission. Yeah, but he's going to recuse himself. No. Okay, so the question came up to a comptroller. One of the fire districts had a commissioner who was a salesperson for that territory, which included the district. The fire engine apparatus company said, listen, we will put a new salesperson in. We will assign someone else. The commissioner will recuse himself and have absolutely no dealings with doing the bid specs, reviewing them at all. And the company went on further to say that the commissioner salesperson will earn no commission whatsoever if they are selected. Absolutely precluded, and they put in writing, absolutely will not earn a dime. The comptroller, I think correctly so, said prohibited, can't do it, no way. So that's how far it goes. In between that person and the janitor may be some other issues, but this is a lawyer issue, right? When this issue comes up, you contact your lawyer because this is one, and you need a lawyer who knows, obviously, the stuff. Hopefully your lawyer does something more than just real estate or criminal work, but this is complicated stuff. But so there are ranges of these things. Keep going, keep going. It's like I'm paying you to ask these questions. You're doing good. This is right. I'll pay you double. So that's a good question, right? So what is the answer? By the way, this long bunch of words that you're seeing up on the screen is everything I just told you without being wordy. It's how I like to take very complicated law and put it in plain English. Kind of what we did with the book, but that's really what we've done. So what about the chief? A fire district cannot do business with a company owned by or benefited by, same way as salesperson, the chief. Why? Because a chief is an officer of the fire district. The chief is the officer of the fire district by law. Now, a captain or a lieutenant is not. And you're going to see a lot of rules when we get back, strangely enough, when we get to travel tomorrow, right? And that's bring your gun, because you'll want to slit your throat or shoot yourself in the head. It's just, travel is just boring stuff. But Dave makes it interesting as he can. Anyway, but with travel, you're going to see that a fire chief and the chiefs can be reimbursed for a lot of things that normal line officers and firefighters cannot be reimbursed for. And the answer why is because a chief is an officer of the district, as is the secretary and the treasurer. You cannot do business with them. Cannot do business. Now, the secretary, I can't come up with a real reason, and I can't tell you I've seen a prohibition against doing business with the secretary's owned business, right? But treasurer, clearly not, because he or she would be paying, cutting the check. Even though they don't make the decision, the treasurer has the care and custody of the funds, and so I think that's prohibited. Fire chief and assistant chiefs, same thing. By the way, you can't hire your chief or assistant chiefs. There's numerous attorney general opinions that say you cannot hire your chief or assistant chief. Why? Because a commissioner can't be an employee, an officer of the district can't be an employee, and your chief, right, is an officer. Now, I don't mean you can't pay your fire chief. That's not what I mean. I mean you can't have your fire chief be like a house person, right, a janitor or a paid firefighter or something. You can't, well, paid firefighter sort of, but you can't hire your fire chief or chiefs in a capacity other than you can hire a paid chief, of course. Okay, so what else can't you do? You can't solicit a gift having more than $75. You can't disclose confidential information. Be wary of this. I had this case. The person went to jail because we have a secret meeting. We're going to buy land. The land we've been trying to get forever. We negotiate a price. We think we have it locked up. I'm getting the agreement signed. I'm drafting it. And before the time my ink is, dry on the purchase contract I drafted, which was the next day, they retract and they sell to someone else for like $5,000 or $10,000 more. Like, how did that happen? Well, the owner was a business owned by one of the commissioner's, I think, brother. Guess what? He disclosed how much we're selling it for, didn't think he was doing a big deal. Actually, it's a felony, right? But at minimum, it's a misdemeanor. So bad things. Don't do that. Don't disclose confidential information for personal use. You can't be compensated to appear before the district. So let's say you're a lobbyist, a salesperson, a lawyer, whatever. You can't say, okay, guys, today I'm not a commissioner, and just listen to me, I'm selling you something, right? Or I'm advocating for somebody. You can't do that. You have a code of ethics. It should be a well-written code of ethics or a sample code of ethics out there. I have a little different one I put in both books as a suggestion. We go a little bit farther. I think we're a little bit more clear than the sample code that's out there, but you got to have a code of ethics. The district can have a board of ethics. I don't think that's a great idea. I think you should let your lawyer determine certain things. Hopefully they get it right. Hopefully they're ethical. I talked to you about this. This is the misdemeanor I put in red, right? If you enter into a contract which is prohibited, it's void. Now, here's the real problem, people. There are not a lot of things that I think you can be personally liable for. And I can't tell you I've seen a case on this, but I bet I could win the case against you. You enter into a contract which you know to be illegal. Let's call it a truck contract. You buy, right? You buy a vehicle from somebody you shouldn't, from one of your commissioners. You buy a Chevy, now you buy a fire truck, a $600,000 fire truck from one of your commissioners. And the commissioner gets a commission. So let's say absolutely void. The law voids the contract. By law, the contract's void. So now the contract is void, except it doesn't get void till, let's say, 5 months into this building of the vehicle. There's a chassis, this vehicle's 80% done. The contract might be void by law, but guess who's getting sued for the money? I'm guessing you people individually, because somebody allowed you to violate the law. You knowingly violated the law, and I think, though I've never seen a case on it, this is my opinion, that because you did something illegal, criminally illegal, you can be personally liable for it. So don't screw with this. I don't think the secretary and treasurer are in that same boat. I don't think so. I think the secretary and treasurer can build the district for as much money. No, I'm kidding. I think the secretary and treasurer are not going to be, because they don't ultimately make the decision, right? You guys, if you're MASH fans, Colonel Potter, you guys give your official okie dokie to it. So I think you guys are on the hook. Treasurer and Secretary, you could be on the hook for other things, but not this. Recusal, I told you, stand up, get out, right? Stand up, get out. Recusal means recusal. You cannot sit there and make nasty looks.